our topic for module number 6, and that is the powers of the mind. Ano po? Our main objective in studying about the powers of the mind in module 6 is to discuss that understanding the left and right brain functions may help in improving one's learning. Okay, then for number 2 objective is to explore mind mapping and mind mapping techniques that is suit to the right brain or left brain dominant thinking style. Then for objective number 3 is to improve learning using both left and right brain development. Okay? So alamin ba natin dito sa ating pag-aaralan what is the purpose of the two parts or two phases of our brain, which are the left and right brain, or the hemisphere, the right hemisphere or the left hemisphere. Okay? So, your brain has all the power connections, wiring, storage, memory, and processing power you need to function as a human being. So, if your brain is the hardware, then your mind is the software. It is the operating system that gathers, stores, and manages information using the massive processing resources of your brain. So, sinasabi dito na yung ating brain daw is it has its power in order to connect, to wire and store a lot of memories, okay? And process a power that you need to function for your body to be able to move, to do its function, 'di ba? So yung brain daw natin literally is it is the hardware, okay? A hardware that makes our body functions, okay? We're going to compare it para siyang system unit rather ng isang computer. Okay? Wherein ito yung nagpapatakbo, the motherboard, 'di ba? Ito yung nagpapatakbo o kumokontrol para mag-function yung computer. Okay? So, our mind, siya naman yung pinakang software. Okay? Kasi kumbaga, ito yung sa atin, nagpo-process on how we think, 'di ba? So, it is the operating system that gathers, stores, and manage information using the massive processing resources of our brain. Okay? So, dito na tayo sa the brain. Okay? When we say brain, it has 3 major parts yung brain natin. Meron daw siyang 3 major parts. These are the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and then the brain system. Okay? So, when we say the brain system, guys, it connects the spinal cord and the brain. Okay? And it controls functions that keep people alive such as breathing, heart rate, blood pressure, okay? And food digestion. So, those activities without those activities that occur without any thought, okay? You aren't telling yourself to inhale or exhale. You are just breathing. 'Di ba? So, kumbaga, dito sa natin, sa cerebellum natin, it has been controlled by what we call the brainstem. Okay? Ng ating cerebrum. Ayan, or tama. Ito yung number 1 major part ng ating brain, the brainstem rather. So, it connects our spinal cord, connected ito sa ating spinal cord, and then siya yung nagko-control ng functions, ng ating katawan. Like, yung breathing, yan, yung function ng lungs natin, yung functions ng heart natin, okay? And then also yung blood pressure and our digestion. Yan, siya daw yung nagko-control. So, kumbaga, you do not tell yourself to breathe. 'Di ba? You do not tell yourself to digest your food. But eventually, naturally, our body, 'di ba, has its function to do it. It is because of the control of the brainstem. Okay? And then, sumunod naman guys is the cerebellum. So, sa cerebellum naman, this region controls voluntarily movement or voluntary movement, wherein you want to lift your fork, wave your hand, brush your hair, and wink at the cutie. Okay? You form the thought, and then the area in the cerebellum translate your will into an action. Okay? So, si cerebellum naman, siya naman yung nagko-control ng mga voluntary movement. Wherein kung ano yung naiisip mong gawin, 'di ba? Kung ano yung gusto mong gawin, let's say you wanted to walk, 'di ba? You wanted to wake up early, 'di ba? So si cerebellum, siya yung nagpo-process nun, 'di ba? Siya yung nagpo-process nun in order for you to do that action. That is voluntary kasi you yourself think of it eh. 'Di ba? So, yun yung function ni cerebellum. Then, our neurons, okay, is the basic functions or the basic functional units of the nervous system. Okay? Yung neurons daw natin, they are the basic functions or the basic functional units, okay, ng ating nervous system. And these neurons has 3 parts, okay? These are the nerve cell body, the axon, and then the dendrite, okay, or the dendrite, okay? So, the power that the rapid fire process that turns thought into movement. The thought moves as an electrical signal from the nerve cell down to axon to the dendrite, then which looks like branches at the end of the nerve cell. So, the signal jumps from the end of the dendrite on the cell across the space, and it is called as the synapse or synapse. Okay? So, to the dendrite of another cell, with the cell of the chemicals called neurotransmitters. Okay. So, meaning to say, itong 3 parts or 3-part unit ng neurons, they have their connections with one another. Kumbaga, the nerve cell body is the one that rapidly process or turn your movement or turn yung kung ano yung pinaprocess ni axon at saka ni dendrite sa ating sa brain natin. Okay? So, they give signals, okay, to one another which is what we call neurotransmitters. Itong signal na to, ito yung nagbibigay ng synapse or ng signal either kay nerve cell body or kay axon para i-process, okay, yung kung ano yung naiisip natin, kung ano yung gustong i-process ng brain natin. Okay? So, next one. So, sabi dito, the signal continues jumping from cell to cell until it reaches the muscle you need to wave, wink, or walk. Ayan. So, kumbaga, these neurons is a part of the cerebellum. Diba? Si neurons daw is a part of the cerebellum wherein it controls the function of our body. Okay? Or, then, yung cerebrum naman is one of the largest or the largest of the 3 brain sections. It is because it accounts more than or about 85% of the brain's weight and it has 4 lobes na tinatawag. Okay? So, almost 85% daw yung sakop, yung weight ni cerebrum sa ating utak. So, yung 4 lobes na meron kay cerebrum are, these are the lobes frontal, the parietal, and then the occipital. Okay? So, each have different functions and they get their names from the sections of the skull that are next to them. So, if we're going to look at the parts of our brain, as you can see, ito yung ating, that is our frontal lobe. Okay? And then this part is the parietal or parietal lobe. Then this is the occipital lobe. There. Then this is the temporal lobe, yung violet. Then sa pinakang baba, that is the cerebellum. Okay? It is connected to our spinal cord, the cerebellum. Yan. So these are the 4 lobes, ano. So sabi dito, the frontal lobe is generally where higher executive functions including emotional regulations, planning, reasoning, and problem solving occur. So si frontal lobe daw, generally yung kanyang function is to execute, okay, the functions of our brain wherein it controls our emotions, okay, on how we do the plans or how we think about plans, then about the reasoning, and then problem solving. Yan, or critical thinking. Yan. So, cover yan ni frontal lobe. And then, si parietal lobe naman, it is behind the frontal lobe, or nasa likod daw siya ni frontal lobe, which separated by central sulcus. So, these are the areas in the parietal lobe that are responsible for integrating sensory information, including the touch, temperature, pressure, and the pain. So, si parietal lobe, if we're going to look at the illustration again, yung kulay yellow, guys, ano, si parietal lobe ang nagko-control ng ating sensory, ayan, siya yung ng ating sensory information. Kung ano yung nakikita mo, kung ano yung naaamoy mo, kung ano yung nalalasahan mo, kung ano yung nararamdaman mo, ang nagpa-process nun ay si parietal lobe. Okay? Then, next naman is the temporal lobe. There. This is the temporal lobe. So, temporal lobe separated from the frontal lobe by the lateral fissures. Okay? So, the temporal lobe also contains regions that are dedicated in processing sensory information, particularly important for hearing, recognizing language, and forming memories. So, the occipital lobe is the major visual processing center in the brain. Okay? So, yun po yun, ano. Ito muna, kasi naano na natin si temporal lobe muna. Siya daw yung separation, ano. Siya yung nagse-separate between kay frontal lobe at saka kay, sineseparate siya by lateral fissures. So, si temporal lobe contains the regions that are dedicated when it comes on processing some of our sensory information. So, meaning to say, the parietal lobe and temporal lobes works together in order to process our sensory information. Okay? So, meron ako ditong hindi ko na-highlight. So, this is the occipital lobe. There. Yan. So, the occipital lobe is the major visual processing center of the brain. Okay? Siya yung nagsisibing major visual processing center ng ating utak. Ano po? So, let us see naman, ano, how do the two hemispheres of our brain, paano siya na-discover? It was discovered by Roger Walcott Sperry, okay? And he started his work on cerebral functions in 1950s with an experiment. Ano? Pinag-aralan niya yung utak ng mga hayop. Sperry severed the corpus callosum, okay? The connection between the two cerebral hemisphere of monkeys and noticed that the hemisphere retrained their ability to learn and function independently. So, pinag-aralan ni Roger Walcott yung utak ng isang unggoy. Ayan. Tapos, ang ginawa niya is, tiningnan niya kasi yung utak natin nahati sa dalawa eh. Diba? The right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. Guys, yung right hemisphere natin is located at our left part. While the right hemisphere naman, tama, the right hemisphere is connected at our left part while the left hemisphere is located at our right part of the brain. Okay? So, pinag-aralan niya to, at nakita niya na the monkey itself can have its own ability when it comes on learning, independently. Okay? And the two halves could not communicate or access in the information that is stored in the opposite half. So, meaning to say, meron silang magkaibang meron silang function na magkaiba. Kumbaga, both part, the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere has its own ability to function. Okay? And together with the neurosurgeon, Joseph Bogen, yan, highlight natin. Their next step was to test his finding in human subject. Okay? So, pagkatapos ng pag-aralan yung utak ng isang unggoy, together with this neurosurgeon, Joseph Bogen, plinano nila, na yung susunod na step, gawin naman nila ito sa tao. Okay? So, nung ginawa nila ito sa tao noong 1940, okay? Meron kasing isang pasyente na merong epilepsy. Okay, na kailangang gamutin by surgical operation. So, ginamitan nila ito ng surgical technique at ang tawag doon ay commiseratomy. Okay? So, yung corpus callosum is also referred to the cerebral commissure. Okay? So, yun yung kailangan nilang i-treat para, malesen. Yung epileptic functions ng utak natin. Kaya naman tayo nagkakaroon ng epilepsy kasi yung utak natin, or ang isang individual, yung utak niya is nagkakaroon ng electric shock. Ika nga. Diba? Pero naman ganun, yung iba kasi yung yung electric shock na nangyayari sa katawan ng isang tao. That electric shock has its, yung effect, with the functions of the brain, wherein tumitigil. Diba? So, kapag tumigil siya, automatic yon, the other part of our body is talaga siya, nag-chill, or siya, diba? So, ganun yung nangyayari sa kanya. So, nung time na yon, nung 1940, etong pasyente na to, kailangan nilang gamutin, o kailangan nilang operahan yung corpus callosum para malesen yung epileptic functions ng brain nito. So, nung time na yon, habang ginagawa nila yon, the patients who underwent the commissatory showed and reduced seizure frequency, okay, and severity with a very little effect on the patient's behavior and ability to learn. So, sinasabi dito, habang pinag-aaralan nila o habang inooperahan nila yung pasyente at ginagamot nila, na yung seizure, okay, na madalas na nangyayari doon sa pasyente, na aapektuhan nito yung behavior at yung kakayanan na matuto ng pasyente. So, these patients were the perfect subject for Sperry and Bogen's further investigation on the function specialization of cerebral hemisphere and the brain function. So, they say this patient is a perfect subject for them to be able to study about the cerebral hemisphere, which are the right and left hemisphere, and the brain function. So, 10 commissionatory patient underwent his split brain experiment. And then first he asked the patient to look a center of the screen or a piece of paper with one eye at a time. So, ganun yung pinagawa niya. So, images or words are presented to one eye, hence one hemisphere at a time. So, if the stimulus is presented to the left eye, only the right hemisphere can process the stimulus. So, meaning to say, nung ginagawa niya na yung experiment niya, sa mga, may mga ganong klase ng sakit, may mga epilepsy na pasyente, ang ginawa niya, nagpakita siya ng picture. Okay? Tapos, yung picture na yun, guys, is isang mata lang ang kailangang makakita. So, pinatakpan niya yung isa, yung right eye niya, pinatakpan niya. So, therefore, nung nakita nung isang mata ng pasyente, ang nag-process nito is yung kanyang right hemisphere lang. Diba? Ito yung kanyang left eye, and then yung right hemisphere, yung left hemisphere niya nandito. So, ang nagpa-process ay ito lang. Diba? Tapos, kung ito naman may takip, tapos, ito lang ang nakakakita ng image, ang nagpa-process lang ng image or nagpa-process ng nakikita nito is yung kanyang left hemisphere. Okay? So, ganun po yun. So, sabi ni Sperry, he found that if a word is presented to the left hemisphere, the patient can easily read the word. But if the same word was presented to the right hemisphere, the patient cannot read the word but understand the meaning or context of the word. So, according to his study, na kapag ka daw yung word ay nai-present mo sa left hemisphere mo. Asan ang left hemisphere? Ito yung left hemisphere natin. So, ito lang yung makakakita. Yung left eye. So, kapag ka i-present siya sa left hemisphere mo, mababasa mo yung word. Pero, kapag both eye or both hemisphere, i-present sa kanya yung word, maiintindihan natin yung meaning at saka yung content ng word. So, similarly, if an image of an object was presented to the left hemisphere, the patient can name the object. But if the same image was presented to the right hemisphere, the patient cannot communicate what the object, but can selected a corresponding object from the set of different object. Okay? So, meaning to say, yung left hemisphere natin, madali niyang mapaprocess kung ano yung nakita natin. While yung right hemisphere is may mga choices pa. Diba? So, ganun yung nangyayari, nung nag-experiment si Sperry. Ayan. So, dito na tayo, sa left hemisphere and right hemisphere. We're going to look at pag hinati natin yung utak natin. Yan yung ating right hemisphere and left hemisphere. So, again, the right hemisphere is located at the left side of our brain. Yan. Ito yan. Tama. This is the left side. Then, the left hemisphere naman is located at the right side of our brain. So, sabi dito, the functions of the brain are art awareness, yan, creativity, imagination, intuition, insight, holistic thought, music awareness, 3D forms, and left-hand control. So, kapag left-handed pala ang isang tao, meaning to say, mas controlled siya ng right hemisphere or right brain functions. Okay? Then, sa left brain functions naman, they have, this brain part has the analytic thought. Okay? A function for analytic thought. Okay? Logic or logistics. Okay? Language. Yan. Reasoning, the ability to reason out. And then, the science and math. Yan. Kaya tayo, nakaka-recognize tayo between the science and the mathematics because of our left brain functions or left brain hemisphere. Then, written, yan, sa pagsusulat, numbers and skills, and then, right hand control. Yan. Yung mga right-handed, diba? It is controlled by the left brain hemisphere. Okay? So, dito naman tayo, sa Herman's whole brain theory. Ayan. So, kanina, pinag-aralan natin yung tungkol sa hemisphere of the brain. Then, dito naman, sa Herman's whole brain theory, is titingnan naman natin, yung kung paano napag-aralan ni Ned Herman yung utak ng isang pasyente at ano yung na-discover niya. Okay? So, the American brain researchers Ned Herman developed the patented HBDI model, okay? Or Herman Brain Dominance Instrument. Yan. So, yun daw yung na-develop niya, okay? So, it is directly related to this is it is patented to his name, by his name. It is because he intended to study about the whole brain technology model. So, ang intention niya kasi is pag-aralan yung buong functions ng brain, ano. Then, both are inextricably linked, and Herman developed the HBDI based on a large diversity of human behavior analysis. So, according to him, ano, it provides an overview of the different thinking styles ng isang tao. Ayan. So, yung HBDI na na-develop ni Ned Herman is nagpapakita daw ito ng overview ng mga thinking style ng isang tao. Kung paano siya mag-isip, And this is also referred to as the thinking reference profile, which is further elaborated in Herman whole brain model. So, this can be determined using the Herman whole brain model, and this thinking reference may change according to one's pace of life. So, alamin nga natin kung ano nga ba yung mga na-discover ni Herman o ni Ned Herman using his HBDI on how the people think or the thinking style of an individual. So, from the HBDI profile, the HBDI model and associated whole brain technology model are not testing, but after all, it is not possible to give the correct or incorrect answers. So, from that time, instead it is about human functioning or the functions of the human's brain. The model do not measure a certain degree of intelligence or skills or even the competencies of an individual. So, sabi dito, yung HBDI profile daw, kaya nitong mag-provide ng insight, okay, about the certain way of thinking, learning, and communicating, and decision-making ng isang individual. Okay? So, these are the three divisions, okay? This is not threefold. Tanggalin natin yung three divisions of the human brain. Okay? According to the HBDI. Sabi dito, physiologically speaking, the human brain is made up of three layers: the cognitive, the affective, and the cognitive part. Okay? So, yung cognitive, guys, ayan, lagyan natin siya ng So, the cognitive is in the reptile brain. Yan. And it is the center of the human instinct and where the flight or flight reaction takes place. So, the latter refers to the defense mechanism that occurs in human and animals when there is an imminent danger. Yan. So, according to the three divisions of the human brain, yun daw, cognitive part ng ating brain has its, instinct or give us an instinct, okay? Which also give us the ability to defend, okay, ourselves. Most especially when we feel na merong something na merong hindi magandang mangyayari. Kumbaga, it keep us alert. This part of our brain keep us alert. Okay? Then, sumunod naman is the affected part. There. The affective part rather is in the limbic brain naman. So, this limbic brain is, it is responsible for our emotions. Yan. Responsible daw yan sa ating emosyon. Halimbawa, malungkot ka, 'di ba, masaya ka, ayan, ano pa? Anong tawag dito? Natatakot ka, ayan. So, si affective part is responsible for every emotions that every individual feel. Okay? So, next one is the cognitive part. There. This cognitive part is in the cortex. Okay? Most especially the neocortex of our brain. So, it is where the central of our thinking and knowledge is located. So, this cognitive part has its function when it comes on how we learn or acquire learnings, knowledge, and thinking skills. Yan. Yun yung ability ni cognitive part. Okay? So, the Hermann whole brain theory model uses the conative reptile brain and affective limbic brain. Okay? He then combined this division with one between the left and the right brain hemisphere. And in the left hemisphere is the logical, analytical, and rational part of the human brain. While the right hemisphere naman, it includes the intuitive, holistic, and imaginary thinking. Ayan, according to the study of Hermann, Ned Hermann, about the whole brain theory, sinasabi niya na yung left hemisphere, according to him, is more on logical, analytical, rational, and human thinking. Okay? A rational part of human thinking. Tapos yung right hemisphere naman is it includes everything that is related to intuitive, holistic, and imaginary thinking. Yan. So, sabi dito, according to his study, every person can handle situations in different ways. Okay? So, the Hermann whole brain theory model groups the thinking style into 4 quadrants. Ayan. So, yung pag-aaral ni Ned Hermann about the whole brain theory is hinati daw niya, yung thinking style ng isang individual into 4 quadrants. At ito nga yun, A, B, C, and D. Okay? So, these are the analytical thinking, experimental thinking, practical thinking, and relational thinking. Okay? So, sabi dito, with the left and right hemisphere, the model is based on the metaphorical model of the brain, and with the left and right hemisphere as well as the limbic and reptile brain, in the model, the thinking style are shown in the 4 different colors as identified. Okay? So, ito yon. Ito yung analytical. The ability of our brain to analyze things independently. Diba? The practical thinker. Diba? Ang practical thinker, ano yung madali? Diba? Ano yung tama? Ano yung practical na dapat gawin? Diba? The experimental thinker. Ito yung subukan ko kaya. Diba? Meron tayong ganyang klase ng paraan ganyang thinking style Subukan ko kaya, baka kasi maganda Baka maganda ang maging resulta. Diba? The relational thinker naman, relational thinker, it pertains to, you are thinking about what would be the effect to you and to other people nung gagawin mong decision. Ayan. So, yan po yung mga natin. Yan yung 4 thinking style according to the study of Ned Hermann about the whole brain theory. Analytical thinker, experimental thinker, practical thinker, and relational thinker. Okay? So, alamin natin what are the meanings of those. So, pag sinabi natin style A, that is analytical thinking, all the blue area. Actually, iniba ko yung niya This is the yellow area. Diba? Iniba ko yung kulay niya So, yung yellow area na yon, yan, tanggalin natin to. Yan. Tanggalin natin yung mga kasi iniba ko yung kulay niya. Yan. Para mas maano natin siya, masundan. Okay? So, yung analytical thinking is the people in this area of Herman whole brain model prepare to analytical thinking and excel at solving mathematical, numerical, and technical problems in a logical way. Yan. So, dito sa analytical thinking, yung tao daw has an ability, to solve and excel at solving mathematical, numerical, technical problems in a logical way. So, they are critical, focus on quantitative data, and assess ideas based on collected facts. Ayan, yun daw mga analytical thinker or analytical thinking. Then, sumunod naman, another thinking style is the practical and structured thinking or the structured thinker. Okay? So, here we are talking about the real organizational talents who work primarily in the controlled, conservative, and planned manner. So, meaning to say, pagdating dito sa letter B, thinking style, sa practical and structured thinking, every individual, do the step-by-step, okay, solution, okay, the step-by-step, process, sumusunod sila doon, diba? They can work in a very detailed, structured, and precise way, and preferably search for the solution to problems step-by-step. So, kumbaga, organize yung practical thinker at saka yung structured thinker. Diba? And they also elaborate their work by thinking what would be the, yung pinakang easy way of doing things. Diba? Most especially when it comes on following the instructions. Next is the relational thinking. Yan. Relational thinking, this person can communicate, reason, and convince other people very well. Yan. If you are a relational thinker, you have the ability to communicate with other people. You have the ability to reason for yourself. You have the ability to reason out for every solution, for every problem, and convince other people very well. Diba? So, they find interpersonal contact with others very important and have a kinesthetic o sensitive attitude. Pag sinabi natin kinesthetic and sensitive attitude, ito nga yung sinabi ko kanina, they think muna. Okay? They think about the consequences, na baka pwedeng makasakit yung sasabihin nila. They have this empathetic, okay? Empathetic empathetic listening. 'Di ba? They have this sympathetic emotions with other people. Na baka pwedeng yung sasabihin niya makasakit, 'di ba? Baka pwedeng yung decision niya is maaring maapektuhan yung ibang tao, yung pamilya niya, yung sarili niya. So kumbaga, inire-relate niya muna, napaka-mindful daw nitong si relational thinker when it comes on decision making. Ayan. Tapos, sa style D is the experimental and creative thinking. This type of individual is, these are the artistic people. Ayan. Meron silang tinatawag na conceptual brain. Nahumulo na. Okay, so conceptual brain, So, meron silang tinatawag na visual, holistic, intuitive, and innovative approach in every situation. Yan daw si experimental at saka si creative thinker. Okay? So, sabi dito, a critical age, yan. From the critical age, because of the brain's healthy functions, it is essential to living and determines the quality of our life. So, some doctors emphasize protecting the organ from injury and chemical abuse. Ito yun. Diba? Yung mga doctor daw, they do suggest, for every individual, most especially, kapag meron na silang nararamdaman na mga sakit sa katawan, diba? They usually emphasize, to protect their organs, even our brain, from the injury and any chemical abuse. Okay? So, there is no consensus among researchers that brain cells regenerate throughout life. Wala pa daw study na nagpapakita, na yun daw cell ng ating utak is may kakayanan pa na mag-regenerate. Mag-regenerate ito habang tayo ay nabubuhay. Okay? So, kumbaga, according to Doug Postel, a pediatric neurosurgeon in New Orleans, that there is a growth happens very slowly after a certain age. Diba? So, ganun daw. So, the size of the brain doesn't decrease much after 3 inches. Okay? According to him. So, meaning to say, habang tumatanda tayo, yung size pala ng brain natin is lumiliit siya hindi siya lumalaki. Rather, hindi siya lumalaki ng hanggang 3 inches. Okay? So, during the first 3 years of our life, the brain experiences most of its growth and develop most of its potential for learning. Mula from 1 year old hanggang 3 years old tayo, yung utak natin is it experiences most of the growth. Diba? Na kailangan nito in order for us to develop most of our potentials and learning. Then, from that time frame, the synaptogenesis or the creation of pathways for brain cells to communicate occurs. So, the doctors generally accept that cut-off point for 2 reasons post-concept. So, kumbaga, kaya meron tayong tinatawag na age gap. Di ba? Yung age gap na yun is, kumbaga, doon daw tumitigil yung development ng ating brain. Nag-i-start na tumigil yung development mula from 5 to 7, tama ba? 5 to 7 years old. Pero hindi naman siya literally tumitigil. Kumbaga, bumabagal. Yan. Bumabagal yung development ng brain natin. Kasi, from 1 to 3 years old, nagiging mabilis yung nagiging mabilis yung development. 'Di ba? Where we can acquire most of our learning and our potentials, much knowledge, 'di ba? Kaya ang bata mabilis na nakaka-absorb yan pag tinuruan siya maglakad, paano kumain, paano pumupo, 'di ba? Paano magsalita, 'di ba? During the 1 to 3 years old. Tapos from 4 yan, hanggang nag-iiba na yung niya kasi bumabagal yung development. 'Di ba? So, kaya nga yung mga mommies, 'di ba, gumagamit sila ng vitamins para dire-diretso yung development ng utak ng isang bata o ng kanyang anak. 'Di ba? Ako nung nalaman ko na pwede palang magkaroon ng age gap ang isang bata. Lagi kong pinapainom ng gatas yung anak ko. 'Di ba? Lagi ko siyang pinainom ng vitamins kasi kumbaga para makatulong sa development. Okay? So, that is a critical age. Nandun tayo sa critical age. Actually, hanggang 7 years old lang naman yun. From 7, then from 8 years old and up, nagsisimula na ulit yung mas mabilis na development ng brain natin. Okay? So, sa susunod naman, we will discuss about the creativity. Ayan. Iko-continue natin, yung lesson natin sa susunod na meeting about the creativity on how are we going to develop the creativity in ourselves. Actually nga, meron na talagang mga inborn, or kumbaga, bata pa lang sila, itinuturo na to sa kanila ng kanilang magulang. Diba? Ako sa yung asawa ko, this will be the continuation of our topic in Module 6. Okay, so which is about the powers of the mind. Okay, so the topic here is developing creativity. Okay, and according to the lesson, we often think about the creativity as making something, but in fact, the root meaning of the word was to grow. Okay? So, sabi daw, we usually think, and we often think na yung creativity is yung para gumawa lang ng isang bagay. Halimbawa, mag-painting, mag-drawing, diba? Maggawa ng sculpture. But actually, the root meaning of this creativity is for you to be able to grow as an individual, marami kasing pwedeng paggamitan ng word na creativity. So let us see kung ano-ano itong mga ito. When we are creative, we feel as if the word and all that is in it is vibrantly alive. Okay? Syempre, kapag creative ikaw as an individual, you feel na yung paligid mo, yung mundo mo is vibrantly alive. And creativity's byproducts are some of the major achievements of civilization. Okay? So, mula sa invention ng Mozart's sonatas, 'di ba? Human beings are essentially born creative, 'di ba? Then, from the infancy, we find innovative ways in order to negotiate our lives. Okay? So, the most creative people find ways around obstacles because they see them not just a roadblocks but also an opportunity. 'Di ba? Totoo naman kasi 'yun eh. Karamihan sa tao, 'di ba? When people is creative, hindi niya tinitingnan ito as an obstacle for him to be able to grow, but despite of anything that is happening, 'di ba, sa kanya, tinitingnan niya pa rin ito as an opportunity, 'di ba? So, creativity expands our perceptions along with perceptions along with our expanded perceptions that comes in a new way of problem solving. Okay? So, yung creativity, ina-expand nito yung perceptions natin as an individual in order for us to solve some problems. Halimbawa na lang yung paggawa ng pagkain o pagluluto ng pagkain, which is actually hindi ka marunong magluto no? Kumbaga, the creativity itself can give you an idea for you to be able to cook. Diba? Then, another one is from making having or making an exquisite meal when you don't know how to cook. And also yung painting, 'di ba? When you do the painting of an extraordinary landscape. Alam niyo yung husband ko, yung family nila, as I have shared nung nakaraan, na yung husband ko kasi, yung family nila is a painter, 'di ba? They do the landscape, tapos naggagawa sila ng mga murals, 'di ba? Karatula, 'di ba? Most especially paintings, So maybe one of this day I will share to you the one of the painting na nagawa ng husband ko, So sabi dito, creative thinking can be stimulated both by unstructured process such as brainstorming. Diba? Yung creative thinking daw, pwede itong ma-stimulate or ma-nurtured by means of brainstorming. Pag sinabi natin brainstorming, it is a way to generate ideas within a group setting. Diba? So, karaniwan ginagawa ito ng mga kumpanya para ma-boost sa pagtatrabaho yung kanilang mga empleyado, 'di ba? Tapos sa mga religious group, ginagawa din po ito. Okay? So isa pa, another one aside from unstructured is the lateral thinking. Pag sinabi nating lateral thinking, this is the process wherein you use reasoning that is not immediately obvious and involving ideas, that may not be obtainable by using only the traditional step-by-step logic. So, sa lateral thinking, you are making an upgrade of the step-by-step logic. Ika nga. 'Di ba? So, kumbaga, gumagamit ka, 'di ba, for you to be able to solve the problem. Diba, gumagamit ka ng reasoning wherein you will be able to solve the problem in a new idea aside from the step-by-step logic. Kumbaga, ito nga yung sinabi ko kanina na you can solve the problem. Diba? You can innovate that step-by-step logic na nakasanayan na. Diba? So, meron akong kakilala na ganun Diba? Madalas na nangyayari kapag meron silang mga uncertainties na kaganapan sa kanilang buhay. He always do the lateral thinking. Okay? instead na sundin niya, actually hindi to pagiging matigas ang ulo no, di ba? Hindi ganun yun. Instead na sundin niya yung step by step, minsan kasi yun yung nakakapagpatagal he do it practically and laterally, di ba? Or literally. So ginagawa niya yun by means of making it more easy to be done, di ba? Sa isang bagay. Okay? So in order for a person to develop their creative thinking, you need to know how to get your creative juices out. Okay? So, ito daw yung mga pwede nating gawin, in order for us to develop our creative thinking. Number 1 is to build inspirational rituals. Ayan. Paano nga ba tayo magbi-build ng tinatawag na inspirational rituals? Actually, ito yung di ba pag nanonood tayo ng TV? Di ba? Pag nanonood tayo ng drama sa TV, usually yung emotion ng anong tawag dito, nung character o nung main character sa TV, sa drama na pinapanood mo is nadadala ka. Naiiyak ka rin, nagagalit ka rin, naiinis ka sa kontrabida, 'di ba? But somehow, as an individual, if for you to be able to develop your creative thinking, maghanap ka ng inspirational with rituals mo. Aside from watching drama, 'di ba? Siguro maghanap ka rin o try to watch the inspirational video, 'di ba? Ng ibang tao kung paano sila nag-succeed sa buhay nila, 'di ba? Paano nila nagawang maayos yung pamumuhay nila, 'di ba? And isa pa dito yung pakikinig pakikinig sa mga magulang mo, 'di ba? Kung ano yung pwede mong gawin everyday na makatutulong sa iyo. Yan, yun yung number 1 natin. And then number 2 is to create something everyday. Syempre, 'di ba? You have to make yourself productive. In short, 'di ba? You have to create something na alam mo na madidevelop, by that madidevelop yung creativity mo. Okay? And then sumunod naman guys is instead of discipline, think of devotion. Sometimes kasi when a person is disciplined, hanggang dun lang siya. 'Di ba? Yung devotion kasi is you are tend to do whatever it takes in order for you to finish what you have started, parang ganon, 'di ba? Then sumunod naman, number 4 is you need to take a break and find creative inspiration. 'Di ba? So, siyempre, pag napapagod ka, 'di ba? Magpahinga, but never stop, 'di ba? Pahinga ka, then hanap ka ulit ng creative inspiration. Kaya alam mo yung mga pintor, yung father-in-law ko, lagi siyang nag-iipon ng mga magazine, nag-iipon siya ng yung sa mga balita, 'di ba, yung may mga pictures, yan, nag-iipon siya ng ganon, tapos yung mga books, calendars, yan, alam niyo kung bakit, once in a while, nakita ko siya tinigilan niya yung painting niya, and then, he took a book, and then, inano niya yun, kumbaga parang binrenounce niya, yung book na yun, binuklat-buklat niya, 'di ba? Kasi kumbaga pwede siyang makakuha ng inspiration, yun yung sabi niya 'di ba? Para kahit papaano is mas mapaganda niya pa yung kanyang paintings, 'di ba? So actually yung bahay nila napapalibutan ng painting 'yan. Kung meron sa inyo na nandito sa Baras, ang bahay ng biyanan ko is dito lang sa may Santiago Pag pumasok kayo sa bahay nila, ang unang-una mo makikita are the paintings talaga. Grabe yung bahay nila, puro painting. Parang gallery siya. Okay? Tapos, number 5 is you need to make a list and select your ideas. Yan. So, syempre, for you to be able to have a productive day, gumawa ka ng list. A to-do list, ika nga. 'Di ba? That to-do list will help you to select a good ideas, okay? For you to do something for a day. Ayan. And then number 6 is you need to ask the right question. Ano yung mga right question? Why, how, what, when, and try to answer it. 'Di ba? 'Diba? Next, number 7 is you need to have fun with your colleagues or friends. Syempre, you have to go out sometimes. 'Diba? Hindi naman po pwedeng kung magpe-painting ka, painting ka lang. 'Diba? Lumabas ka din. 'Diba? Kasi sa ganung paraan, makakahanap ka ng inspiration. Sa ganung paraan ay mag-chill out ka, ma-unwind ka from blocking your day dahil sa dami ng gawa mo, 'di ba? Then another one is you need to working on your most productive hour. 'Di ba? Ano ba yung most productive hour mo? Yung sa feeling mo na kailangan mo nang gawin 'to at sa tingin mo magiging maganda siya pag ito sinimulan mo siya. 'Di ba? Then sometimes you also have to take a risk. 'Di ba? Kumbaga, napaka-challenging yung buhay ng isang individual, napaka-challenging. Okay? So, sometimes you have to take a risk of doing things. 'Di ba? In order for you to develop your creativity. 'Di ba? You have to involve yourself, 'di ba? In problem solving situation. 'Di ba? Kasi, through that, madidevelop ang tinatawag nating creative thinking. Okay? And also, number 10 is learn by doing. Syempre, hindi naman pwedeng lista ka lang ng lista o isip ka lang ng isip, 'di ba? So, kailangan kung ano yung inilista mo at kung ano yung gagawin mo talaga na nasa mindset mo, gawin mo siya. 'Di ba? Kasi once na sinimulan mo na siya, once na nagawa mo na siya, dun may matututunan ka. Okay? Doon pa lang maiisip mo na, ay, oo nga, no, tama. 'Di ba? Alam niyo, meron akong kakilala, madalas siyang magsabi o madalas siyang nagkakaroon ng yung aha moment, sabi niya nga. 'Di ba? Lagi siyang may aha moment sa sarili niya na when he analyze something or heard something from yun sa mga ebook na pinapakinggan niya, lagi siyang merong aha moment. Yung aha moment na yun, natututo siya on how to do something creative, 'di ba? At maging productive yung araw niya. Okay? So, to be connected with our lesson, yung being creative. One of the things that you can do in order for you to develop your creativity is to do the mind mapping. Okay? So, pag sinabi nating mind mapping, it helps us to make thinking more visible. Okay? So, most people make notes using line paper and blue or black ink. Okay? So, making notes are more attractive to the plan by adding color and rhythm. Can aid the learning process and can help make learning fun. Okay? So, paano nga ba yung mind mapping na sinasabi ni ma'am? Yung mind mapping is magsisimula ka sa isang word. Ayan, sa isang salita. Let's say holiday. 'Di ba? This holiday is meron siyang iba't ibang branch. Ano-ano ba yung mga pwede nating gawin o ano-ano ba yung mga word na connected sa holiday? Unang-una na is the activity. 'Di ba? Pangalawa, transportation. Tuwing holiday, pwede akong bumiyahe, 'di ba? Sumunod naman is the accommodation. Pwede naman akong magbakasyon o pwede namang nandun lang ako sa bahay namin o 'di ba? Sa family or family day, 'di ba? Tapos or pwede naman na pwede kayong mag-date, pwede kayong pumunta somewhere, 'di ba? And then this word that is connected with holiday has also its different branches. Ayan. Halimbawa, yung family. Tuwing holiday, you want to be with your family. Sino-sino yung family mo? Those are Zoe, Anna, Julius, Finn. Sa accommodation naman, kung nandun ka lang sa bahay nyo, ano yung mga connected na lugar? 'Di ba? Doon sa accommodation, yun yung apartment mo o bahay mo, tapos saan lugar yung bahay mo na yun. 'Di ba? Tapos yung transportation, okay? Ito yung gusto mong umalis, 'di ba? Let's say for example, every holiday you want to travel somewhere. Pwedeng sumakay sa plane, sumakay sa car, mag-rent, 'di ba? O kaya bumili ng plane ticket kasama yung anak mo, pwedeng ikaw, pwede yung anak mo, 'di ba? Then sumunod naman is the place you want to go when you travel. Yan, connected yan sila. Okay, either sa Tuscany, sa Florence, sa Data, 'di ba? So, kumbaga or date rather, yan. Kailan yan? Kailan ka pupunta diyan? Let's say for example, sa Florence pupunta ka ng ganong date. Tapos sa Tuscany ganitong date. Yan. So, yan yung mga yan yung connection ng mind mapping. Magi-start ka sa isang word at mag-iisip ka naman ng mga connected na iba pang word na naka-inline pa rin doon sa word na nasa gitna. Tapos yan, ito siya. Balikan natin. Yan. Tapos yung bawat word na yun, may branches din yun. Yun yung tinatawag nating mind mapping. Okay? So, an individual also have its own way of sinasabi nating associative thinking. When we say associative thinking, it is relatively uncontrolled cognitive activity in which the mind wanders without specific direction. 'Di ba? And ang mga elements nito is naka-base doon sa connection, okay? Natin doon sa minsan kasi we do the daydreaming, reverie, free association, 'di ba? Halimbawa, when you think about the fire engine, ang unang-una mong naiisip is ambulance. And then, kumbaga, yung associative thinking kasi, ito yung paraan ng utak natin kung saan we think of something na hindi natin nakokontrol. Yung flash, diba? Tip of an eye, parang ganun. Diba? Yun yung associative thinking. Yung bang, bigla-bigla mo na lang siyang naiisip. 'Di ba? Usually nagiging resulta 'yun ng daydreaming, 'di ba? So, yan yung tinatawag nating associative thinking. Okay? So, that will be our lesson for module number 6. Ano po? Okay? So,